sir.
Yeah. Okay, welcome all.
Sir, Santosh sir, shall we wait for 5 minutes? Because
Yes, sir, please, please.
no. Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon, Santosh sir. So, the speaker of this session is Dr. Santosh Kumar Viparthi. Dr. Santosh sir is working as assistant professor in MNIT Jaipur. Dr. Viparthi has more than 11 years of experience, including teaching and industry. He leads Vision Intelligence Lab with research focused on important visual perception tasks. Dr. Viparthi is associate with various government agencies for his research. His research area are computer vision, deep learning, image processing, AI, biomedical image processing, and signal processing. Thank you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you, Vijay sir, for the invitation. I hope you are able to see the screen.
Yes, sir. Screen is visible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Vijay sir, for inviting me to this particular FTP. So, as myself, Santosh Kumar Viparthi, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science Engineering, MNIT Jaipur. So here at MNIT, I lead this Vision Intelligence Lab. It's my own group of PhD scholars and master students here. So in today's presentation, we would like to discuss on the topic called video analytics problem. Three applications we would like to discuss. One is the moving object detection and their variants. So what actually a moving object detection or a video analytics, why it is required and why it will be a fundamental task. So now here the name itself is saying that a moving object detection. That means you would like to detect the moving objects, not the static objects. So how we would like to know something which is moving in a given set of video? Because in a particular video, the objects or the background can be a static or it can be a dynamic. Even though the information in a video is dynamic in nature, we need to detect the true motions in a given video. So therefore, this is one of the fundamental tasks for most of the vision analytics problems. Now the same problem of moving object. Yeah. So the same problem of moving object detection or can be called as foreground segmentation. So we would like to segment the foreground informations from a background. We would like to separate a foregrounds from a background. That can also be called as moving object detection or foreground segmentation. Now this particular problem of moving object detection can also be used in the conventional use as well as from the aerial use. So if you try to observe for the easy understanding here, in the left side there is a set of video here, you are able to see it here. On the right side, only the objects which are moving are going to be segmented with a pixel-wise binary segmentation strategy. By applying pixel-wise segmentation strategy, and in the rightmost side, if you're not able to see any of the background information here. So this is what called foreground segmentation or moving object detection or background estimation concepts. So once you have estimated a background, then from a background you can able to subtract from a given video, you can able to get the rest of the information that is called foreground. Now, if you can able to see the literature in this particular field of change detection or foreground segmentation, the rightmost side, whatever you have seen here, this is, as I said, that it is each and every pixel is going to be classified as a foreground or a background. That's called binary classification of each pixel as a foreground or a background. But if you can able to see on the middle one here, this is also a moving object recognition problem, where only the moving cars in this example are going to be recognized, but not the rest of the cars which are laid down on the parking lot. So you observe here, in here, this is also a car, this is also a car. Yeah, this is a car and this is a car and this is all, these are all the cars. But these are all the cars which are not going to be recognized in this particular thing. Only the cars which are moving are going to be recognized. This is called moving object recognition. So the moving object recognition is a task which is going to be done with the help of bounding boxes. So here you are going to recognizing the objects with the help of the bounding boxes. Not the case as a right side what you can able to see. So this is an alternative way of solving a problem. How we can able to achieve this? As if you can able to see a standard conventional way of solving a moving object detection, these are the three important steps are we need to follow to get this particular output. So this is a video, is a collection of frames. It can be called as a temporal sequence. You can consider from a temporal sequence, you can able to estimate the first background. First, we need to estimate the background. So once you estimate a background, from the current frame, you need to take the difference between the estimated background versus the current frame. That is called saliency estimation. So the saliency estimation is nothing but whatever the background you have estimated, you would like to subtract the current frame from this particular estimated background from the previous frames. What actually it means is, let's assume you have 100 frames are there in a video. Initially 10 frames you have considered for the background estimation. So take 1 to 10 frames as a reference. With the help of 10 frames, you can first estimate the background. Then you compare the 11th frame, whether the 11th frame is having any motion or not. So the 11th frame versus the background which is estimated from the previous 10 frames, you take the difference between these two for a easy understanding. You can able to get some information if there is any motion is there. Let's assume in the 11th frame is also having a similar background, whatever you are already able to see on the middle frame, then the difference between these two will become 0. That means the 11th frame is also a background information. There is no motion is present. So this is called saliency estimation. Once the saliency estimation is done, then we can able to go for the foreground segmentation. So where we can able to use these particular applications? Sir, lecture 3 KB. कर लो अभी मैं lecture में हूँ. Yeah, sorry. So now this particular concept of background estimation can be widely used in many of the applications in most of the visual analytics problems. Some of the applications here we can able to see it here. The first one is an intrusion detection. So if you can able to see here the intrusion detection, intrusion is an activity which is going to happen very rarely. So once you can able to estimate how the particular normal background will be looks like, and we knew the limitations at the particular boundary, and if any person is trying to cross this particular boundary, then it can able to easily detect. For that, we need to use this background estimation as a one of pre-processing type. Now here you can able to see the another vision analytics problem here in the daily traffic conditions here. Now you try to observe this is a vehicles. These vehicles are trying to cross the lane without proper indicator, and the driving behavior of these two vehicles are not straight. So this is not a normal behavior of a driving, because here there is a traffic, there is no point in crossing the line. So we can able to detect such type of anomalous behaviors in a particular driver. Now you try to observe this is another interesting problem here is a violence detection here. So why we call here it is a violence detection here? If you try to observe this particular frame here in this, there is a person, he is trying to hold a particular gun, and he is trying to aiming towards this gun to a particular shopkeeper. So he is holding a gun, so the gun itself is one of the violent object, and the person is wearing a mask, and the gesture of this particular person, that is called the pose or action of this particular person, is towards harming a particular person, right? Harming the shopkeeper. So now this particular action will be maybe considered as a violent activity here. The reason of conclusion of this violent activity here is because he is trying to hold a particular gun here. But here the challenging here is, if you try to observe here in this example, the person is entering into a normal shop. If you can able to see the background information here, this is a shop which is a normal shop. But now let's assume the case in other sense, the shop itself is having a guns, and you have entered into the shop to test the gun. Now while the person is trying to touch the gun, and the same posture or same action he's going to show, in that situation the same behavior will be going to be considered as a normal activity. But in this example, as is a normal shop, it will be called as a violence activity. So to conclude whether the given action is a violence or normal is also proportional depending upon the environment, that is called the background. It is not only the action and the object which is there on a person's hand, it is also the background information is also an important aspect to take a final decision. Now you can able to see this is another interesting problem of detection based tracking. Nowadays, to analyze a person's behavior during the play, we can use this vision analytics as a reference where we can able to analyze in frame wise. So overall a person's behavior, the way he is going to run, the way he is going to throw a ball, the the techniques whatever he is trying to follow, we can easily able to analyze. And this particular in this particular field of detection based tracking, that is especially on the sports, there are few startups which are working on this particular direction. Now coming to this anomaly detection, this is one of the interesting and challenging area in the video analytics here. As in the previous case also I said the anomaly detection. So anomalous activity is something which is a very rarely going to happen. So normal activity will be the amount of normal activity will be very much higher than the anomalous activity. Now, if you can able to observe to train this particular model, you will have a more normal data than the anomalous data. So here the training of this particular type of training to utilize the data for giving a proper solution is a big challenging question here in this example. Now here we need to define what actually an anomalous what is a different, we need to define an anomaly depending upon our requirement and availability of the data, or as per our requirement we need to collect the data, then we can able to train the model. Otherwise, in one case the anomalous activity we can call anomalous activity, in other case it can be a normal activity. Let's take a simple example. Two people are fighting in a ground, in a school ground, students are fighting, that was an anomalous activity. But the same two kids are fighting in a boxing ground. Now the same actions and the same thing will be called as a normal activity. Then it can be called as a sports. Now here the fighting itself is not a decision maker, is also the other parameters is also very important parameters here to define or conclude the anomalous detection. Now, forensic analysis, this is one of the another important and challenging area here to understand. Here we have CCTV cameras are available with us because of the cheap availability of the hardware. Now, these CCTV cameras, whatever is availability is there with us. It is all the cameras are going to be used for the data acquisition purpose only, right? But let's assume there was some activities happened, maybe ATM robbery might be happened. During the robbery, with the visual analytics, we are not going to make automatic alarming system, but we can develop a solution that automatic alarming system who are while during the robbery. Now, handling or analyzing this huge big data is a very challenging condition here because a human operator, dedicated human operator is required to monitor this huge data, maybe in shift wise. In order to do that, we can develop an algorithm to handle this particular big visual data, and depending upon our requirement, we can able to process this particular data. In recent times, this COVID situations which are really attracted this particular field of crowd monitoring or crowd analysis. This particular field of research was there for many years, but it was in recent times of COVID, it is attracted. Let's see some of the challenges of here. Whenever you are going to analyzing on the crowd monitoring, here the size of the object is very smaller in size. So that is also we need to consider. And the background information is also very dynamic in nature. Now coming back to this crowd monitoring, with the help of this crowd monitoring, also we can able to take some decisions. For example, the total number of people who attended a particular event. If there is any restriction on the head count, also we can able to count. Now let's assume in a supermarket or in a particular mall, there was a concert is going on, then crowd will going to be gathered there to watch that particular concert. Now here the gathering a crowd to watch the concert is a normal activity, but in the same mall, maybe some fell down, some accident might be happened, then also the crowd will going to be gathered. But in that situation, the crowd gathering is an abnormal activity, it is not a normal activity. So with the help of this crowd monitoring also we can able to come to this normal and abnormal activities. Now marine surveillance. So now till now what are the things we have discussed is all on the conventional views. But here now we're coming back to the aerial views. Suppose if you're trying to monitoring this particular data through drones or through helicopter or from any aerial view device, then what are the challenges are there? So from the aerial view, we can able to monitor this particular marine surveillance also. Now with the availability of the drones, we can easily able to monitor these particular things. The much research is going on this particular area. The first one is search and rescue, and during the disasters we can able to detect various number of objects, and we can able to estimate the damage during the disasters, and also we can able to monitor the particular premises of a particular area through our drones and so on. So what are all the challenges are there? So because what are the challenges we have discussed now, these are all applications, but what are the general common challenges will be there while we are trying to solve the problem in the conventional views? So these are all the few common, very quite common challenges which will going to appear while you are trying to estimating a background. The first challenging here is like camera jitter problem. Let's assume you have installed a CC camera. Due to any means, the camera is bit disturbed while acquiring the data. So that the disturbance of the camera, that means maybe it might be because of the jerking, or maybe because of the shaking of a particular camera, you can able to create one small disturbance in a video. So if you'll observe here in the same thing, this is a background and this is also a background, but the area which is highlighted in the bounding box, if you'll observe here in the rightmost side, the information is a bit disturbed than the left side. So whenever you would like to take the difference between these two, you will going to get the non-zero information, because if both the information is the same thing and the same lighting environment, you would like to, if you take the difference between these two, that is called with respect to time called t, and at that another frame at t plus 1 frame. If these two difference will be 0, that means both are same and it is a background information. But at this particular area where the red bounding boxes were there, here you will going to get the non-zero information, because here the intensities are not same because of the camera jitter problem. And this is very quite common problem which we need to consider before applying any of the algorithm, that is called a dynamic background information. So what is meant by a dynamic background information? Let's assume you are trying to stand in front of the fountain and you would like to monitor the objects or cars or movements of the people in other side of the fountain. You are in one side of the fountain, you would like to capture the data from other, you are aiming to monitor the data at the other side of the mountain. Now as the time goes on, as per the properties of that particular fountain, the fountain as per the properties is going to be vary with respect to time. So as it is going to be vary with respect to time at that particular location, it is going to create an illusion as a movement. But actually, as you know this is not the moving object, it is belongs to the background information. But as if you can able to analyze the pixel wise information at this particular location, you will going to get this changes. Now you see here the bounding box, which is a fountain, this is the actual creating an issue, but your region of interest is on the back, in the back side, which is highlighted on the green bounding box. So we need to analyze this particular or suppress or detect this particular motion as a background, then we need to suppress this. Therefore, the true emotions or true background information can be recognized. The third important one is an illumination changes. So this is very quite common challenging problem here in the illumination changes here. As the time goes on, the changes at this particular with respect to time, the changes at these locations will going to be vary. So if you can able to see it here at the t frame and the t plus 20 frame, there is a change in there. The background is remain same, but the lighting conditions are going to be vary. So the pixel intensity values at this t frame and t plus 20th frame will be different. So as we know this particular problem of this particular changes in the pixels are happening just because of the illumination effect. It's not on the true emotion, so true changes. So we need to detect these things. Now the another challenging problem is a camouflage problem, where your background information and the foreground information both are same. Here the person is going to stand with by wearing the red color jacket, and the door is also red color. So here it will be a bit easier to recognize the thing, but let's try to analyze this particular problem here. There is a flight which is in the white color and the background is also somewhat in the white color. The area location like a bounding box, you can able to observe here there is a flight. So this is a camouflage problem. So now challenging weather conditions is one of the major challenging problem here. Like challenging weather conditions is one of the problems, so we need to consider here. And a very quite common problem here is a shadow. So while you are trying to move, the shadow will also going to create one illusion. So that whenever you are trying to take the pixelized difference, whenever you are going to analyzing on with respect to the pixels, there you can able to find out the motion of a particular shadow. But as you knew this is not the actual true motion here. This is the motion of a particular shadow. So we need to surpass this information while estimating a background. So this is one of the aim to do it. This is one of the challenge. Now night video is one of the biggest challenging problem here in the night videos, because in the night videos the lights of a particular objects are going to create a lot of confusion while recognizing a particular object. So this is another challenging problem. And intermediate motion of an object or object motions. It means that let's assume your vehicle is moving very too fast or your vehicle is moving too slow. Let's assume a case, initially 10 frames or 20 frames you are going to consider for the estimation of a background. So the moderate motions are going to be covered in the 10-20 frames. But your vehicle is going too slow in such a way that it will going to create an illusion as a background information, because the changes within this particular frames are very small. The amount of change will be very minute changes will be there. Therefore, it creates an illusion as a background, but actually the vehicle is moving because of the slow motion. The similar case as a fast motion. If the objects are moving very faster, then also it will not even comes under background or foreground. So that is a problem. So intermediate object motion is also one of the biggest challenging problem. Like turbulence and bigger moving objects, and these are all the another challenging problem here in the bigger moving objects. If you will observe here the size of the objects is very bigger in size. In a particular one frame, the entire object is not going to be covered. Still, it is belongs to the one object, so we need to consider that particular bigger moving objects also one of the challenging area. So the challenges which we have discussed, these are all belongs to the conventional view. Now we can able to see the different type of challenges from a aerial view. So if you'll observe here in the aerial view, here the aim of the application will be moving object detection or recognition only, but the data is different. Here the data are in which for which application we would like to do is different. So let's assume this is one another way of solving a problem of moving object detection from an aerial view. Now you see the challenges here. Now here you can able to see this. In a single frame, how many number of objects are there? Here we have a dense number of objects are there, but in the conventional we have very finite number of objects will be there. Now also if you observe here, the size of the object here, the size of the object is very smaller in size. It looks very smaller in size, so we need to detect the objects which are very smaller, because as we are handling from the aerial view, that is another problem. Now if you observe this particular background information here, the background is very dynamic in nature. So the analyzing a background is also one of the biggest challenging problem. And you see this as the size of the object is very smaller in size here. Here these are the two particular objects which are in black color, two cars which are in black color. It is going to create an illusion as there is a hole on a particular road. There are few pits on our road, right? So now these particular things also we need to detect. So this is the problem. And another thing is, as from an aerial view, here a number of objects will be there in the parking lot, and there are few objects which are moving. So we need to detect those moving things only, not the objects which are on a parking. And the occlusion and lightning conditions and weather conditions which are common as we have discussed in the previous problem. So the problems which are there in the conventional view will be carried forward here also, but some extra problems also will be there here. Now if you can able to see from the literature, so before applying this deep learning approaches, this is the standard approaches as we have discussed. This is our traditional approach. First we need to extract the features from a given video sequence. These are the frames. This is called a video. The video consisting of the frames. From this particular temporal sequence, we can able to get the features. The features can be color features, edge features, temporal features, or spatial any features, depending upon the requirement. Then the second step will be background modeling, where we need to initialize the background, then we need to maintain the background. Once this initialization maintenance is done, then we need to go for the foreground detection. So from the literature, these are the few feature informations will be there. Color features, spatial, temporal, and so on. The background modeling also be done within various steps: parameter, non-parametric clustering, neural networks, fuzzy, and so on. And the foreground detection can be done in two ways. One is through classification, and another one is thresholding. As I said about the classification, each and every pixel we would like to classify whether it is a foreground or a background. Thresholding, if the pixel intensity is the differences will be, or the motion information is greater than some threshold, it can be considered as a motion, otherwise no. So the more details about this conventional way of understanding this particular change detection, or especially for the background estimation, you can go through this particular survey which is published into TIP. So this is one of the good survey by one of the other. So pixel level methods are there, region level methods are there, hybrid methods are there, iterative modeling models are there, and missing data reconstruction. So if you can able to observe here, what is this particular things? First one is pixel level methods. Pixel level methods are nothing but as we are trying to handling on a particular temporal data. You have a frame of m cross n size. For each and every pixel, you are trying to take a decision whether it is a foreground or background. So we would like to process each pixel independently. That is called pixel level methods. But the region level methods are nothing but we are not processing on a pixel level. It is based on the group of pixels, like some convolution operations as you can consider, or you can able to in the image perspective, you can go for this particular mask operations or grid operations or neighborhood operations, you can call it as, that is called region level methods. And there are few articles which they have you combined both pixel level methods as well as the region level methods and so on. Now, what are the methods are there in the literature? Ultimate aim of these methods will be either one of these outcome. One, either it can be for the online purposes or for the offline purposes. Online algorithm is nothing but you would like to take the decision at the same time. Offline is nothing but you can take the decisions after some time. So now coming to the recent observations on the deep learning methods. So here there was a small technical difference between these conventional methods and the deep learning methods. In the conventional approaches, there is no concept of a particular training, because whatever the video will be there, we would like to estimate the backgrounds, then we need to maintain the background, then we need to go for the saliency map representation and foreground information. So there is no such training is involved in this. So it's completely unsupervised learning. But comes to the deep learning methods, here we have followed the supervised learning strategies.
उसमें लगी है रिजर्व में, ठीक है। तो मैं अभी आया था, अभी कोई वहाँ था नहीं, मतलब फाइल है, तो कुछ हो तो बता देना मुझे कंफर्म, ठीक है, तो फिर मैं वैसे एक्टिवेट कर दूंगा, ठीक है। ओके।
Yeah. So in the deep learning methods, if you'll observe, as a supervised learning, so there are few observations which we have drawn out of these particular things. First thing is the way you would like to feed the input to a network is also an important parameter. Because in few of the articles, if you can able to see there, they have used a T number of frames as an input, few subset of T frame, few only single frame, or few already the frames which are pre-computed. The backgrounds are already pre-computed, then they used to pass to the network. Like this, there are different ways the others have followed in the literature before passing to the network to get the results. Before getting the results, they used to handle the issues at the input itself. Then we have different architecture styles for there in the encoder decoder networks, like CNN, convolutional LSTM, and 2D CNN, 3D CNN, and so on, GAN, and so on. So these are all the few publicly available data sets here in the literature. These are all the natural scenario data sets and underwater and thermal. And here, if you can able to see this CDNet 2014 data set is one of the popular data sets for the conventional algorithms. So before deep learning, this is the data set where the people used to show their efficacy. It's one of the challenging data set where it is having 13 different categories, 13 different challenges were considered in this particular data set. Now this is the last year PTAS, SPI, and UCSD. There are few other more Davis data sets also. So these are all the few data sets which are publicly available. Thank you. So these are the few publicly available data sets are there in the literature. So this is a total number of frames and video and label informations and so on. So to check your accuracy, we need to go for this pressure, recall, F-score, and so on. And this is the IOU. This particular part of IOU we're going to discuss later on. So this is a performance measure. We would like to use it for moving object recognition with the help of the bounding boxes rather than this pixelized binary segmentation strategies. Then we will go to measure these performances in terms of IOU. So let's talk about this first particular paper problem of candidate. This is called robust change dynamics and deterministic update policy for dynamic background subtraction concept. So in the literature, as I said, in the conventional views, the people have utilized, they followed some strategies. The first one is how to initialize the parameter. The second important thing is how they are going to update in the background, because we need to estimate the background and at the same time we need to update the background, because the strategy which we adopted to update the background is also very important parameter. Another one is whether this particular algorithm will be sensitive to the background dynamic backgrounds or not. So these are all the few things like vibe, substance, and the PBAS, and these are the algorithms which are not dynamic in nature. And initially the parameters are manually they have updated, but one algorithm like candidate they have adaptively updated according to the situation. And the background model updation will be non-deterministic in the existing approaches, and this is a deterministic in candidate, and so on. And these are the few other comparisons here. So the people have used some of the color images and local descriptors, and also in the candidate there is no local descriptor, so it is much faster. This is one of the conventional approach. This paper is available in ICPR conference in 2018. So I'm not going to discuss on this conventional views. So this is another important problem of change reduction with the help of this ANTIC, with the descriptor, traditional or handcrafted approaches you can call it as. So if you'll see here the ANTIC, here the descriptive design is one of the important parameter. So what is the descriptor here? As I said that the problems can be solved with the help of the pixel-wise analysis, pixel-wise processing we can do, or we can go for neighborhood operations or grid operations. So this is a neighborhood operation where the size of 3x3 mask we can consider. Within that mask we can able to process and analyze the data. This is one application called ANTIC. And the main aim of this particular ANTIC is to detect this particular shadow information, or to surpass this shadow information is one of the important aspect here. The advantage of the ANTIC here with respect to this other descriptors, like here you can able to see this. These are all the various other popular descriptors are there: LBP, LMEP, and LDBP, and this is the original image. And the ANTIC approaches are something which they are going to detecting the lines at the same time the corner informations together. So they're detecting the lines and corners together in this particular descriptors, and in the existing descriptors are failed to do, either they are going for the line detection or for the corner detection and so on, and they are not able to even handling the noise information and so on. So if you visually can able to see the changes here. So here with this we have used to introduce two different concepts like inter and intra ANTIC concepts here. So inter concept and intra ANTIC concept, that means as it is a color image of RGB, so within the neighborhood operations or with the current frame and with the future frame, between these two also we can able to calculate the relations, that is called inter, and within the frame you would like to take, that is called intra. So if you'll observe here the shadow information, the image here is on the shadow. So this is a pure background information. At this particular background you can able to take this intra ANTIC information where it is having 16-bit representation. And here this is the shadow information. You can able to hear in the same background the person is trying to walk with respect to time. At this particular information here you can able to get the shadow. For that shadow location also you can able to get this particular intra ANTIC. So you got some representation. So whatever the background you have estimated and whatever the information you got it for at that location of shadow, you take the Hamming distance between these two. The Hamming distance will be 2. So the distance is very smaller in size. Let's take the information where there is actually a foreground. The person is trying to walk, and the person information you are going to take at that location. If you are going to take this intra ANTIC, you got some 16-bit representation. Then you take the Hamming distance between the estimated intra ANTIC features with respect to the background information. Then you got the Hamming distance is 8. So here we have considered the threshold whether the Hamming distance is greater than or equal to 50%, then you can consider as a foreground, otherwise background. So in the Hamming distance is 2, so it belongs to the background information. The Hamming distance is 8, here you can consider as a foreground information, so that the shadow informations we can able to surpass. particular paper is available in this HIIT Computer Vision journal. If anybody interested, they can go for it. Now coming to the recent concepts like deep learning techniques. As we knew this in recent time, the concept of deep learning has gained a lot of attention in most of the computer vision applications. And it is also evident that deep learning concepts are outperforming over these handcrafted or traditional approaches because of this simultaneous learning possibility in the CNN. And also, if you can able to see most of the research articles, these all techniques have outperformed in most of the applications in this particular vision, computer vision, like classification problems, object detection, semantic segmentation, and so on. But the actual problem comes here is most of the deep learning techniques are getting better performances on benchmark data sets because of this inconsistent training and testing data division schemes. This is a major observation which we have drawn out of it. Yeah, I forgot to inform that. To know about more details about this deep learning based review things, so you can verify this particular website where you can able to get the latest review article on this with respect to the deep learning and the future challenges and directions. So that paper got accepted in IEEE Translation Intelligent Transportation Systems. If anybody interested, you can visit this particular site. Now coming back to this particular deep learning problem here. So here, why this particular data handling is very much important. Let's see this particular data division before developing any of the algorithm, how it will going to be effects on the results we're going to discuss. Let's see here. Here we have come up with the two different conclusions. One is a scene dependent evaluation, another is scene independent evaluation. So scene dependent evaluation is nothing but where your background training data information of the background and the testing background will be remain same. That is called scene dependent evaluation. And scene independent means there is no relation between the training set and the testing set. So whenever we're going to go for the scene dependent evaluation, that the results will be going to be inflated. So you try to observe this particular pictorial representation of scene dependent or independent evaluation. The first one is the scene dependent evaluation data division here. Data division here. So here let's assume one category. Let's assume there are four videos you would like to use for the training. And that video is divided into training data and the testing data. Now, if you try to observe the testing data visual features and the training data visual features, you can able to see there is a resemblance between these two. Maybe the same frames might be not there in the testing, but the similar background information is also present in the testing. That means the training, the information which you have used in the training and the information you are going to use in the testing are having some relation. This is called a scene dependent data division strategy. So when are we going to train the model on this environment and going to test on this environment, definitely there will be a chance of getting a better accuracy. But what is meant by scene independent data division here? In the scene dependent data division here in the case of 4 videos, 3 videos are completely used for the training, but you are going to test the testing on a completely unseen video. So here the testing data is completely unseen, which is not at all used in the training. So this is scene independent data evaluation strategy. So in the deep learning, let's go for a few of the deep learning articles in the field of change reduction. This is the first article in 2018 by these authors. Let's analyze this. So here they have a video temporal sequence of 100 frames they have considered. From 100 frames, they have estimated a background. This is a temporal median they have estimated here. So as you can able to see here, the background, whatever you are observing here, this is a temporal median. That is called a traditional way of they applied to estimate the background from a given temporal sequence. and the background information they have passed it for the estimation of the saliency estimation. So what are the background they have created with the temporal mean? They have they have used for the estimation of the saliency information, and that whatever the information they have used for the saliency information has passed to the simple encoder decoder network. So if you'll observe here in the encoder decoder network here, they have followed this multi-scale information. First one is bigger in size, another one is smaller in size, and at the end they have combined these two of bigger size and smaller size, and they got the results. But if you can able to observe here, they have followed this temporal median, the conventional way approaches they have adopted here to solve the problem. So, and here the CNN network also very simple, small network. Let me show you this network here. Yeah. Now you can able to see it here. This is a simple encoder and a decoder network here. So if you can able to observe this encoder decoder, what are the temporal salience information was there here, and the salience information has first passed to the 8 convolution layers. Then they have applied the max pooling, then activation function, then again go for the convolution 4 convolution layers on this response, and slowly the latent features have extracted here, and the latent features have passed to the decoder network. Therefore, they can able to reconstruct the same size of it as fast as the input. But how they have done this particular training, if you'll observe further the training strategy, they clearly mention this article that there are total 18,000 frames they have considered here from this particular popular data set, like CDNet 2014 data set. Out of this 18,000, the 12,000 frames are around 13,000 frames they have used for the training, and the remaining frames like 6,000 frames they have used for the testing. Now the question comes here is what type of data they have used for the training and which particular frame they have used for the testing is a question mark, because it's not clearly defined what type of data used for the training and what type of data used for the testing. Let's assume if you would like to replicate these particular results, or if you want to re-implement this particular code in the same data set, you may not going to get the similar results. The reason here is whatever the data they have used here for their results, we don't know. And this is one example, and there are many articles on the similar lines. So this is one of the first articles in this particular field of change detection you can consider. And they have clearly mentioned about their limitations also in the article. So what are the background they have estimated is using the handcrafted techniques, and they have not tested the model on all the categories. And from the similar group, this is another article which is published in IEEE Intelligent Transportation Systems here in 2018. And this is the first article as per the information from this particular article. They were clearly saying that this is the first attempt or first paper in the field of change detection where they are going to provide a complete end-to-end solution, a novel compact end-to-end deep network for moving object detection, that is called MSFGNet. So if you observe this, what is meant by end-to-end network? So if you observe here, this is their network, deep learning network, where this network is having 4 steps. One is first module is going to be taking care about the background estimation, that is called BENet. The second portion is going to be taking care about the SMNet, that is called saliency motion network. And the third one is a simple encoder decoder to get the foreground information. So their paper was having 3 different models. If you observe here in this case, this is the input sequence, and here you will going to get the outputs, but in between there was no involvement of the handcrafted or traditional approaches. The entire problem is solved in an end-to-end manner with the help of the deep learning. That's how this particular paper they clearly mentioned about. This is the first article in the field of change detection by providing a complete end-to-end solution with the help of deep learning. Let's try to analyze this particular problem. Here they have used the temporal sequence of 50 frames. For a 50 frames, they have calculated the first target is to estimate the background. So the background will be a single frame. So from a sequence of 50 frames of temporal sequence, first they need to estimate the background. So in order to estimate the background here, so the 50 frames they have used for the temporal pooling, then they have done some convolutions and max pooling, then come to the temporal pooling, they come to single frame. Now the background is estimated, then they have done and replicated these layers. That means they have repeated this estimated background 50 times, and they concatenated these original frames, as you can able to see on the concatenation layer, the original frames and estimated background and so on 50 times. Once they have estimated these two, then they have gone for the difference layer. Therefore, as I said that what are the motion informations are there from the background. So for the 50 frame, they have got some 50 different layers. From the 50 different layers, they got this max pooling, then they pass it to the encoder decoder network. So here you can ask why they have used this replicated layer. The reason for using this replicated layer, as per the understanding here, is this particular entire code was implemented in the MATLAB with the 1080 graph GPU card. 1080, yes, 1080 GPUs they have used here, as they have implemented on the MATLAB in 2018. The libraries are not available, so they have replicated this particular strategy to get this particular differential information. To get the motion saliency information, they have followed this particular strategy. Then they have passed the simple compact encoder decoder to get the foreground information. So this is the simple network they have proposed. But if you can further analyze this particular thing here, here if you observe that initially they have used the 50 frames. So this particular entire algorithm will going to give you the decisions for the 50 frames. For the 50 frames, wherever the motion is there, then it will going to be give you as an output. So for the every 50 frames, it will going to give you the outputs. So in order to train this particular model, they have combined two different data sets, that is called CNET 2014 dataset and LASIASTA dataset, and total they have collected 32,000 frames, and they have divided this much number with the divided by 50. They got some 653 group of set of frames. They got it. So out of 653, they are divided into training and testing to get the model and test it. Yeah. Now again the question here is, out of the 653, which particular frames they have used for the training and which particular frame they have used for the testing was not clear. So this is also comes under scene dependent evaluation strategy. So they also tested with some cross data training testing also they have done with the help of this particular PTIS dataset to check their efficacy. So these are the results they have shown on this particular datasets, and these are the results in that from that particular paper. As I said that the limitation of this particular paper was they have the data division is one of the biggest challenging problem here. So, but the thing which we need to appreciate from this particular paper is this is the first article in the field of change detection. As before this, the deep learning algorithms are much popular on the classification problems, not on the video analytics. And in the change detection, this is one of the first paper which we have, with which the others have claimed that this is the first end-to-end network. So now this is another article which we have proposed. The question here is a scene independency matters. As I said that even though we might be getting a better results, there may be a hidden region of getting the better results is the way we are handling the data. So if you can able to do something within the data itself during the training and testing, then which may lead to the better results. But this is not the case, or these particular strategies which may not going to give you the generalization capabilities. That means in the unseen scenarios, the algorithms may going to fail. So by observing these particular things from the various articles in the field of change detection, we have come up with a new solution that is called scene independency matters, an empirical study of scene dependent and scene independent evaluation for CNN based change detection. This paper got accepted in IEEE Translation Intelligent Transport Systems 2020. So as I said, here we have clearly defined this particular scene dependent and independent experimental frameworks here on most of the popular data sets, and also we propose one new framework here to get the results. So if you can able to observe here the first framework here, this is the initial temporal 50 frames here. From the 50 frames, we need to estimate the background here. So in order to estimate the background, here we have taken the we have proposed the MMSR blocks, that is called maximum multi-spatial receptive feature information we have extracted here. So if you observe this MMSR information here, these are 1x1, 3x3 and 5x5 features which you have calculated from the given temporal sequence. Out of these three responses, we have taken out the only max out of these two so that we can able to get the change information from these three. And this particular block is repeated twice by considering a gradually we are reducing the size to 1 because here the temporal sequence is 50, but here the background is a single frame. So here we have trying to reduce the depth of this temporal depth to 1 here with the help of this GRBE block and the help of the MMSR block. So once you estimate the background, so we need to go for the saliency information. Therefore, the current frame that is called 51st frame. The 51st frame is passed as an input here to the MMSR block, and through MMSR blocks we have taken max out of it, and we got some foreground and some features from a given 51st frame. And we also feed this temporal median to this particular network. So temporal median from this 50 frames, if required, we can able to remove this also. The ablation study by removing this also shown in the ablation study. So by combining this estimated background and current frame and temporal median, we have combined all the things together. Then it can be called as CFA block. That is called a coarse feature assimilation block. Here we have combined all the three features together, and these three frames we have passed it to the encoder decoder network. This is a simple encoder decoder network here. This is a pictorial visualization of the networks, what the network is trying to learn inside. So here the temporal history frames are 50. So from a 50 frame, this is the first MMSR block, second MMSR, third MMSR. We estimated the background here. Then from a current frame, we passed to the same MMSR block. There we got some features, and temporal median is the background which we have conventional way. We followed the conventional way to estimate the background. Then combine all the things together. That is called contrasting feature estimator. You'll observe here. This is observation which you have. This is the thing which I am explaining here in the previous case. This is the substance is a non-deep learning approach. So non-deep learning approach doesn't require any other training. Then there is no like data division strategy. So we can consider this is a scene independent evaluation strategy. But rest of the algorithms, what we are able to see it here, these are all deep learning approaches. So these are all the popular techniques which have not followed this particular scene independent evaluation strategy. They have followed a scene dependent evaluation strategy. And also, if you can able to see these all the techniques, they have followed some of the some different type of strategy they follow to use the training data. So 50% of the training frames, some random selection for the training frames, and 90%, 70%, and so on. So to mimic this, to prove this particular scene dependent was overflowed, inflating the results in this change reduction, we also come up with a scene dependent evaluation. But here the data divisions are very much clear. If anybody interested to replicate the results easily, they can able to follow the strategy here. And also we propose a scene independent evaluation strategy here to get the better, to address these challenges. So how further we have tested? So in the scene independent evaluation here in the data division, suppose we have n number of categories are there, and each category is having a k number of images, a k number of videos. So in the scene independent evaluation, the category wise training is also done, and at the same time complete data training is also done. So in this article, both categorized results have shown, at the same time complete results also shown. So in the scene independent, simply the strategy which followed here is leave one video out strategy is adopted here to train the model and test the model. So what type of videos used for the training and for which video you use for the testing is clearly presented in this particular article. Similarly for the category, as I said that in the category also 4 videos will be there. Which videos they have used for the training and testing clearly defined in this particular article. Now complete the advantage here is challenges. advantage here is it is very complex data will be available. So much number of challenges are available, will be available our model to train in a better manner. But the problem here is, as is the complete data, it will take a lot of time to train. Similarly, the problem we have done in that scene dependent evaluation also, the data is very much simple here. The scene dependent evaluation is implemented just to show the dependencies will get the better results, to prove that, nothing else. So if you can able to take this 1000 frames, let's assume 1000 frames in a given video, simply you can take initial 50% for the training and rest of the 50% for the testing. So simple logic. What are the data set we have used? Initial 50 used for the training and rest of the 50 used for the testing. So there is no randomness, nothing, clear. So here also we have done the categories and complete. So there are 4 different experimentations we have done here to show the efficacies. So this is the implementation few details. The entire model was implemented on the Keras environment with the TensorFlow background. And here the TensorFlow we have used here is 256 class 25650. This is a past temporal history, and the 256 class 256 class 1 is a current frame and temporal median. These 3 we have passed. Here the value t here we use is 50. So for every time the 50 frames are going to be passed and take a decision for the single frame. So this is the training configuration. The model was trained on the NVIDIA Titan XP. And these are the few results. And if you'll observe here the result. So this if you'll observe this result here. Here the training data, as I said earlier also, like the conventional approach doesn't require any other training thing, so there is no training data at all. So they used to test the model on the testing data itself. So every video considered as a testing data, directly they used to check their performance. There's a conventional way. But this particular problem of this particular testing and training came after deep learning started. So in the deep learning, if you observe here, there are few people who trained their model on the 50%, but they tested their model on the 100%. Right? There are few people who have tested their model on the 50% and the 50%, but which particular 50% of the data they have used for the training is not clear, and which particular 50% of the data is used for the testing is not clear. So to follow the similar thing as scene independence, we also divided the same data like this: 50% with the training and 100% is for the testing and so on. And also the experiments were also done in the scene independent evaluation. And these are the few articles which they have followed the scene independent evaluation. They have cited our article only. This is one article which we have published before. This is in IEEE signal processing letters. So they followed our article and they have compared with these approaches. This is called scene independent evaluation they have followed. Various different data sets and results here. Yeah, as comes to this particular ablation studies here. So we have tested our models without using the temporal median also, so that it can be complete end-to-end solution. And also remove this current frame, but logically it should not be, but as per the requirement from the reviewers, we have tested their models and the results have shown here. So by combination of this temporal median and current frame and MMSR blocks, we got the better results over the other as compared to others. And as if we compare with the in terms of parameters, so the proposed algorithm like change rate was a bit faster than the existing approaches. And here you can able to see 58.8 frames per second. It is going to be processed in the GPU environment. So from this is the observation which you have drawn here. Scene independent evaluation is obviously always going to outperform than the scene independent evaluation, and scene independent evaluation is will get the much generalization capability than the scene dependent evaluation. So if you can able to see, there is a much growth here to do on these particular data sets. And this is the first article in the field of change reduction, which we have clearly defined these particular problems and propose a experimentation strategy with the new end-to-end solution in the particular field of change reduction. And these are the few results. Similarly, in the similar field, we have got some IEEE translation image processing, where we have used the 3D CD model, Is that instead of 2D CNN, here we have used a 3D CNN model. And this is the observation here in the 3D CNN, where we have come up with the complete, and here there is no temporal matrix, is completely end-to-end solution with the proper experimentations. So here first the module is a GRBE, this is called a gradual reduction background estimator, the granular reduction background estimator, and FSR, that's called foreground saliency reinforcement algorithm. Then here we have used this multi-schematic encoder and decoder, and we have finally used the compact foreground detection. So let's go for this GRBE. As I said, we need to reduce the depth here gradually. We need to reduce the depth here. The initial we have a 50 frames in the temporal sequence, is the 3D CNN. So here simply we cannot able to reduce the filters by half. Here we need to do the pooling in temporal way. So initially we have used the pooling of 5, so we reduce the temporal sequence to 10. Then we have done some convolution. Then we have used the pooling of 2. Then we have used the pooling of 5, so that we have come up with a single frame that is called 1 cross H cross W cross 1. So the temporal sequence of 50 is come down to a single frame in a gradually by reducing the temporal depths. So here the aim here is to estimate the background. Then we need to pass this estimated background for the calculation of the salience information. So in a normal way, if you can simply pass this particular current frame and estimated background, you can take the difference between these two. We will going to get this particular changes. But here the noise information also may be available. So in order to further reduce that, so this difference is called as a CMF, that is called coarse motion features. But in order to smoothing this particular changes, we have passed this particular response of CMF to the convolution layer, and at the same time the current frame is also passed the convolution operation. Then the responses are going to be concatenated together to get the FSR. Otherwise also, without using the CMF also, we can directly pass the information, but by smoothing the information, there may be better chance to get the results. With this intuition, we have followed this particular CMF block we have introduced here. So in the previous case of encoder decoder, there are many articles which are followed multi-schematic structures in the encoder side, but in our proposed model, we have used this parallel structures in the decoder side also. And also to preserve this particular features, we have used this RC. This is a residual connection block we have used here. So residual concept also we have introduced here to get the features. Once you got this particular decoder features, so directly we cannot able to test it, because here we have got this multi-schematic features. So to smoothing further, we have used this particular CFD. So if you're not going to use the CFD directly, you're going to test it, you will going to receive most of the noisy information here. So to remove that, we have used here this CFD. Here you can able to see these visual features here, temporal history frames and the current frame. The temporal history frames you have passed to the GRBE, granular reduction background estimator. You got this background information. From there you are using this current frame and estimated background. You got the coarse motion features and foreground salience representation and so on. And the same results also tested on same results have tested on various categories here, scene, independent and dependent and so on. If you have any questions as such, you can discuss with me. Then we can move to the next concept slowly. Are you able to follow me, or you're not able to follow me?
Hello.
Yeah, please. If you have any questions.
Yes, sir. We were able to follow you. Sir, I just have one question. Like, if we don't have, if the data is say very large, so we will be using only a small set of data plus ground truth for training the network. So is there any rule, like if I have say 10,000, I have a data of 10,000. So what should be the amount of data for which the ground truth should be available? Like,
Yeah, I understand. So see, actually, whenever you're going to train a model with a limited amount of data, you're going to face a problem of overfitting. So in order to learn in order to learn or in order to avoid or combat from this overfitting, we need to use more data. So there is no specific measure that you should have 1,000 frames is required or 10,000 frames is required or 100 frames is required, because there are two different things we need to consider before implementing an algorithm. One is, if you have a compact data, then instead of developing a deep networks, maybe we can go for the shallow networks where it can able to maybe handle it. Or if you have a huge network, then shallow networks may not going to work. You may be required bigger networks. Of course, properties of the data is also important to design a network. So there is no specific such one parameter there is required, to conclude that uh, minimum this much amount of data is required. So we cannot able to say exactly on that. There are many parameters we need to consider before developing an algorithm, designing an algorithm.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other questions? If you have any questions, please discuss. So as it is a 3D model, so if you can able to see this visualization, so in this particular new, yeah, anybody having any question? Yeah, so internal network behavior also we can able to see with this particular heat map representations, so that we can able to understand how accurate this particular model is trying to learn, or how the weights have learned and how it will going to be giving a results. So we can be able to visualize the internal behavior of the networks. So this is a few articles on this on change prediction from the conventional view, and this is also tested with various applications have done in this particular application to get the results. So this is the parameters. As you can able to see, this 3D CNN is a bit slower than the 2D CNN, because 2D CNN is 58.8 frames per second is going to be processed, but the 3D CNN is going to be processed only 25 frames per second, because here we are going to considering the temporal sequence. We are trying to take a decision. We are involving this temporal sequence. Motion is also considering. But in the previous case of 2D CNN, we are considering 50 frames, where internally we are calculating the motions. So this is the difference between the 3D versus 2D. And if you can able to see it here in the different environment conditions also, we can able to detect this particular foreground information where other motion changes are there. Just a second. Yeah. So now move to the next part. Moving object recognition. So these are the first articles in this particular field of moving object recognition, where we have done the simultaneous localization and classification problems together. So this is called single stage deep learning frameworks, which we have proposed here. And let's try to understand the difference between the moving object detection or moving object recognition. So let's assume this is, of course, this is our campus where we have captured some videos. So you observe here, this is a sequence of frames are there. Now in this particular sequence of frames, if you'll observe the object detection, here you can able to detect all the objects or recognize all the objects. Like the objects like a person's cars which are parking on the parking lot, everything we can able to detect. That's called object detection. But comes to this particular moving object detection, the conventional way, where, as we have discussed earlier, where the moving objects are going to be recognized or detected with the pixelless binary segmentation strategy. That's called foregrounds. Foregrounds are going to be segmented from a background. And where we have introduced a concept where that is called moving object recognition, where you can able to recognize this particular foreground information with the help of the bounding boxes. So what was the difference, technical difference between these two here? Here, if you'll observe here in this particular object detection, moving object detection, we were limited ourselves to utilize this particular ground truths only. So in order to train the model like this, or if you are trying to okay, so if you'll observe here, in order to train this model, we need such type of ground truths to us, so that your model can able to learn. Now, how to create this particular ground truths is one of the biggest challenging area. So generating this type of binary segmented responses in a big data is one of the biggest challenging problem here. So that is not that much easier to do it. So it is a very cumbersome task for any of the researchers to develop it. So the label generation itself is a research area in many video analytics problems. So for that, you can able to develop the algorithm for the in the customized environment, but we fail to we can able to develop these algorithms on the existing data sets. But if you would like to do the algorithm in the customized environment, then it is a problematic. For example, if you would like to develop such type of similar solution for your university, then you don't have that labeled information, so we cannot able to blindly train this. So we have come up with a new solution that we can create this bounding box based labeled information that is much easier than creating this particular pixel binary segmentation strategy. So here creating such type of labels is one of the easiest tasks, which is inspired from the concepts of object detection. So you observe here in this second case, where here you can able to see n number of objects are going to be detected here because object detection. But in the moving object recognition, only the objects which are on the moving portion are going to be recognized here, not the objects here on the right side, which is the cars which are parked there on the parking lot. We are not going to recognize that because our object here is moving object recognition. So how to do it? As this is the first article in this, so in order to prove this particular prototype work, so we have taken the same popular dataset that is called CDNet 2014 dataset, where we have created our bound access aligned bounding boxes, where we have 42,000 objects are going to be we have labeled, and out of which these are 14,000 are cars, 27,000 are persons, and these are the number of details which we have considered. So this is the data set and labeled informations. So around 40 plus thousand labels we have created, and the 38,000 information we have used for the training, and rest of the information used for the testing. And this particular data set is which we have made freely available to the public. Who anybody interested, you can access this. And this is the first article which we have published in the WSCV conference in 2022-20. This is a Korea conference. So if you'll observe here, as I said, this entire algorithm which is inspired from the object detection concept, but we don't want to detect all the objects, so we have integrated two different applications together here. One is the moving object detection concept as well as the object detection concepts here. So now if you can able to see the temporal sequence of 50 frames here, from a temporal 50 frame sequence, we have estimated a background. To estimate the background, we need to use this TDR block, temporal depth radius block, and also we have taken the help of temporal median information here and the current frame to get the motion information. So TDR block, that is called estimated background, and temporal median and current frame, these all three combined together and pass it to the backbone model here. So in the backbone model here, we have used the ResNet 50 as a backbone model here. So as the model was inspired from the RetinaNet, in the RetinaNet they have used the ResNet 50. We also tested the same model with the ResNet 50, and we got the backbone features. Apart from this, we have passed this only a current frame to a backbone model, only current frame to a backbone model to get the backbone features. That is called the features from a given input data. And these two backbone features have combined together, then passes the multi-level feature pyramid structure, where we can able to handle this multi-scale information. So once we handle the multi-scale information, there we can pass this information to the regression loss as well as the classification loss. So simultaneously we are doing the localization problem as well as the classification problem. So regression loss will going to help us to locate the object, and the classification is going to help us to recognize the object. So this is one of the TDR example here in this particular algorithm paper. So initially we have used the 32 filter, then 16, 18 and 1, so that the 50 frames are down to single frame to estimate the background. So this is a visual representation of this background distribution on the 3 different sequences. This is my temporal sequence of past frames, and this is my current frames, and this is my TDR response, where we have estimated the background. And as I said, it's a multi-level feature pyramidal structure. So we have tried to visualize the internal heat map representation of this particular visualization pyramidal structure. For each scale on a given video, you can able to see there are, even though the scales are very down, we can able to detect the objects. So as I said, this is the first attempt in this particular field. So we have tested our model by considering this ResNet 50 as a backbone model, also MobileNet is a backbone model, and we have tested with the various temporal sequence of depths 10, 20, 30 and so on. So we also tested our studies on by passing this current frame and assimilation frames together, and also tested without current frame passing also to the backbone model. So if you can able to see, whenever you are going to pass the current frame also, current frame is nothing but like this. So here the current frame is separately we have passed to the background model. So here ResNet 50 has to run 2 times. Here current frame, temporal median and estimated background, all 3 together we are passing to the ResNet 50 to get the backbone features. And separately again we are passing this current frame to the ResNet 50. So ResNet 50 we are utilizing 2 times. So whenever you are going to use the current frame information also together, here we have a model size is very much higher. But whenever you are going to ignore this current frame, that means whenever you are going to use only one time backbone feature, then your model size will be half. And of course, it will going to be effect on the results as well. So this is our intersection over union on every 20% reduction to 80% of the IOU. We got the results on this particular different categories: software environment, bungalow, parking, and overall. So this is a testing on a data, the qualitative results. If you'll observe here in this example, so whenever the vehicle is moving, it is going to be detecting with the bounding boxes. And here you observe this is an entire background where the snow is falling. The snow comes under background, and here the flags are moving. If you'll observe here, there are the flags are moving here, and these moving flags are not comes under background. Sorry, this comes under background, not the foreground. So our algorithm need to take care about this information as well. And here also you can able to see the snowfall. And here see n number of objects are there lie down. We are not going to recognizing those things. Only we are focusing on the moving objects only. See here in this example, if you can consider, there is a shadow information, but we are not we are ignoring the shadow. We are algorithm is not even considering the shadow also. So that is another importance. Now till now whatever we have discussed, this is on conventional view. Now comes to the aerial view, where moving object recognition we can do in the aerial view. So as I said, if you want to work on the aerial view, so the time we have started the work, there was a very limited amount of data was available. So we have created a database from the aerial perspective. I'm going to discuss about this particular database. Now you try to see the challenges of these two, as I said earlier also. So in the regular view and aerial view. So in the regular view, if you can able to see it here, the size of the object is very bigger in size. So one object is going to be detected with the help of the bigger bounding boxes. And you can able to see in a single frame, very finite number of objects are available here. Only 2 objects are present here. But on the right side, if you'll observe here, the size of the objects is very smaller in size, very small, tiny objects. And in a single frame, you have a very dense number of objects are presented here. So let's assume the algorithm you have applied on the left side, you would like to test on the right side. We may not going to get the similar results because here, if you can consider this much of the bigger size object in the left side, instead of one object here, you are going to cover more number of objects. So this is a problem, and this is a vice versa. A small size objects, tiny objects in the right side. If you go to test on the left side, a small portion of the bigger car will not going to be covered with the single bounding box. So this was the problematic solution. So we need to develop an algorithm according to the requirement. So as the availability of the data sets are limited, the time we started, so we have proposed one particular data set that is called ABD, that is called airborne data set. So in the airborne data set, we have collected 2000 videos and 2000 frames we have collected, images were collected from various sources by taking proper permissions. And out of these 2000 images, we have annotated 42,000 objects. So we have annotated 42,000 objects with the 4 classes. One is a car, heavy vehicle, plane, and boat. And these are all the total number of information about this ABD dataset. And this dataset is made it publicly available. And this particular work was published in IEEE letters on geoscience and remote sensing letters. So this is a few details about the ADB dataset. Now comes to this the UAV MoreNet, because we would like to focus on the moving object recognition from the aerial view. So as the focus is on aerial view, moving object recognition from the aerial view, as we don't have the dataset, so we have proposed a dataset and we gave a first solution. So this is the first algorithm where it is simultaneously localizing and classifying the moving objects. This is the first approach in this particular aerial. So if you observe here in object detection, as I have discussed earlier, here this object detection, this is the MOD with the help of this pixel-based binary segmentation, and this is the MOR with the help of the bounding boxes. So in the aerial view, as you can able to see here, the background is very cluttered, very challenging. So estimating a background in the aerial scenario is a very big question mark. So we will not going to estimate a background in this scenario, but we would like to go for the another strategy because we need to go for the motion. So we have taken from the temporal history frame, we have taken the optical flow information here. We have taken an optical flow information here. From an optical flow, we got this motion information. Then the current frame, we both have passed to the ResNet 50, that is called backbone model. Then we got this motion saliency features and we pass it to the pyramidal structure. So here the challenges are different and the conventional view challenges are different. So if you can able to see from this pyramidal structure here, we were not able to show on for the 5 levels. We are able to show here only on the 3 levels because of the size of the object is very smaller in size. It's very difficult to recognize in the other levels. So this is the data set division here. In this particular more UAV data set, we have collected videos from sources, again with the taking proper permissions, and 52,000 objects we have annotated for the training, and testing is for the 2,000 objects. And we have tested our results on few categories because of the various challenges we have introduced in this particular more UAV data set. And these are the baseline results in this particular application. And this is the intersection of our unit. This is the results. So till now, you have any doubts, please you can discuss. Are you able to follow me or am I going faster? If you have any questions, you can please discuss. Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If you have any questions, you can please discuss with me so that we can discuss, then we can move to the next part.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Sir. So how have you annotated the images, like the bounding boxes? Which tool you have used to annotate the images?
Yeah. To annotate the images, we have used the YOLO marker. YOLO marker is a publicly available tool, open source.
Okay.
So we have taken the help of these YOLO markers. Then we have annotated these particular videos. I mean labels. Because annotating with the help of these bounding boxes is much easier than creating these pixelized binary segmentation
Yes, sir.
labels.
So, sir, can we use this YOLO marker for pixel-wise segmentation also, though it would be difficult?
Uh, then we need to go for an alternative solution where wherever the region is there, that particular portion supposed to be used and rest of the information can be ignored. So we need to go for an alternative solution to do it. If required, we can of course do it. Because creating this particular type of bounding, I mean labels is a challenging question. So we can follow anything, yes. You can take this bounding box region, find the location, then the rest of the locations can be make it as a 0 and the rest of the bounding box region can be 1. So you can get generate the bounding, I mean ground truths also. Yes, we can do that.
Okay. Actually, sir, I am working on the defects, images of defects. So I have, lines.
Images of
Like,
defects.
yes, defects. So different defects are there. So, but the problem is that I don't have ground truth images of the data set that is available publicly.
Yes.
So I have searched many tools, but they are paid. And so I was just thinking if I can use this tool to get the ground truth images.
Yeah, you can use it. You can definitely can use this
So
YOLO marker. It
so
would have
what is the name? It is YOLO marker.
YOLO marker.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And the and there are few other label softwares also there. For that, just we need to search it out. But YOLO marker is one of the standard one which generally people have used in the object detection data generation.
Okay. Because sir, Label Me, I know about Label Me, but it is paid. And there is one image, Amazon SageMaker, but it is also paid.
Okay.
Both are subscription based.
Okay.
So you said this is open source.
Yeah, it's open source.
Okay.
Because
Thank you, sir.
as it's open source, we have utilized it and we have created this label, so we know about it. It's open source, not a problem.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any other question?
No, sir. No question.
Then we'll move to the next topic, that is called anomaly detection. So as I said, this anomaly detection is one of the very much challenging area to develop an algorithm here. So anomalous is nothing but we have a normal pattern here, but at a particular time instant, we can able to get some abnormal behavior like this here, able to see on the right side. Now, how to detect that anomalous activities is the first challenging question. So the concept of anomaly detection can be used in many places like a fault detection, fraud detection, and the medical sector and industrial sector and so on. So in the similar lines, this is one basic work which we have done in the anomaly detection is very basic world work. So there is a video from a particular video sequence. We have passed this particular video frames to the VGG 19 model. And similarly, this particular frame sequence we have passed to the optical flow. So from the optical flow, we got the motion features and the optical flow information we have passed to the motion net. And from motion net, we got some output, some information. And from VGC 16, we got some information. Combine these two and take the classification. So here the major thing which we have initially used is how to divide this data. So here also video, we have manually given the labels that what are the normal data, where is the abnormal data, then we have balanced the data. So here we have balanced the data. This is one of the difficult tasks to balancing this particular normal frames and abnormal frames. Now, this is one of the interesting problem of challenging timestamp aware anomaly detection in the traffic video. So this is a particular challenge every year, which is going to be conducted by the CVPR in CVPR conference. In CVPR from 2018, this particular challenge is started. That's called AICT challenge, which is organized by NVIDIA. So in NVIDIA has collected this particular surveillance on highway. They have collected this data from the highway. So they would like to develop a solution on anomaly detection of an anomalous activities on a highway. So here the definition of anomalous activity here is the vehicles which are stopped here on the highway is an anomalous activity, because as per the rule and properties of the highway, the vehicle has to move. They should not be stopped. So if the vehicle has stopped, that means there was some problem maybe. So to detect that, they have created some data sets, and this is the few sample of samples they have provided here. You can able to see it here. And these are the few other challenges in this particular data set, like intermittent slow motion of the vehicles and car in the parking lots, and some patch problems here. If you can able to observe here, this is a small patch problem is there. So like this, these are all the various challenges they have introduced in this particular challenge, the AICT challenge. So in order to give a solution, here we have followed 3-step strategy. One is the first we have estimated the background. From the background, we have estimated that we have detected the objects. Then we have come up with a timestamp aware anomaly detection. That means at what location the anomalous activities have happened. So here the target is not only detect the anomaly, also to detect location of the anomalies. So to do that, first we have come up with the background model, simply encoder decoder network. So where we have estimated the background. So once we have estimated the background, then we have to go for the tiny object detection, as I have shown that in the previous case, like as we have proposed the ABDNet airborne dataset. So where we have trained the model on the airborne dataset, one model we proposed, this model tested on the airborne dataset, because of that is a small tiny objects, and that model we have tested here. Because this is a very smaller in size, training on this particular dataset is very challenging issue. So one particular object detection model, that too tiny object detection model has proposed. So if you can able to observe here, you observe here. So this is my video sequence, and for this particular video sequence, we have estimated a background. So from a background, because the idea here is on a highway, the vehicles are going to be moved. So if any vehicle will going to be stopped for a particular time period, that vehicle information will be available in the background. So once the background is there, single frame, so you can able to simply go for the object detection strategy. So you observe here, this is the video sequence here, and try to focus here. This is a small object, which is the small car, which is going to stop here. Observe here, at this location, there is a small vehicle which is stopped on the highway, and this particular information is available on the background. So the vehicle which is stopped here is shown on the background, and this particular information will be easily able to detect as an anomalous activity on the rightmost side. Similarly, on some another environments, you can able to see it here. There is a small vehicle which is going to move here, and it is going to move very slowly. It comes under background, and it is going to be detected. So it was an anomalous activity. So here you can able to see this is another sequence, another video sequence where at this location the vehicle has stopped on the highway, and that information is detected in the background, and we are going to detecting that as a anomalous activity here in this particular example. Now this particular problem is also having some false results. Like what? You try to observe here. In this particular video, none of the vehicles have stopped, but in the background, this is a small patch information is available here. Now you observe here on the right side, in the middle one, here the patch is there. So patch size is so small in such a way that the algorithm was able to detect that as an object, but actually there was no object. So background is properly estimating, but the vehicles are so smaller in size, so it is going to create an illusion as an background is going to be estimated. That is some of the false detection recognitions. Now here you see here that there are few vehicles have stopped here, and that information is available on the background, but still it is recognizing properly. But this patch is going to create a problem because these tiny objects are going to. It is algorithm is recognizing that as an object. That is a problem actually. So these are the few problems in this particular anomaly detection. Yeah. So thank you. If you have any further things to discuss, please you discuss with me so that we can discuss.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Wonderful session. Participants, if you have any query, please ask.
If anybody having any questions, you please discuss with me. So if you want to know the few details about this, the algorithms or codes or data sets and information, you can visit my website. There you can able to get this information that the Vision Intelligence Lab as I told you. So from there you will going to get some information.
Kindly share the link of your website in the chat box.
Where is the chat box? I'm not able to see.
Sir, it was disabled, but I don't know that the administrator can enable this chat box. So near to participant, show participant is there now. Near to that, there is a chat box.
No, I'm not able to see here. There is only hand raise option is there.
No issues. I will share on the WhatsApp group or mail to all the participants.
Yeah.
Okay.
If required, I will share this particular presentation to you people. There in the particular presentation, you can find my website details and also no issue.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
So, yeah. Thank you.
Participants, please switch on your camera so that we can collect some pics. Please turn. Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you all.
Thank you, Vijay sir. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Next session will be start at 3 p.m.